My name is Nelson Lim. I'm the grandson of Jeronimo Lim King, a Korean who fought in the Cuban Revolution.
이문조 선생님은 쿠바 한인사의 가장 중심 인물이라고 할 수 있습니다.
It's a story of return. The story of Koreans in Cuba is one of search for self and search for a home away from home.
Hey, Cindy. It's Sally.
Sam. Hey, Matt.
영미야.
Cynthia.
이모.
Who the hell are you? I'm Kyopo, man.
은영. No, 용하.
So the 23rd Toronto RERUN International Film Festival is taking place from November 7th to the 15th, and all 4 Korean films that these guys directed or produced have just finished screening at RERUN, and I hope you guys really enjoy the movies as well. This year, RERUN is showcasing 32 films in contemporary Asian cinema and works from the Asian diaspora. KCSF is thrilled to be a community partner for all 4 Korean diaspora films this year, Miss Purple, Kyopo, Into Such Assembly, and Geronimo. I'm gonna say that in Korean. Geronimo. You guys get into film. Okay. All right, so James, we're started.
I've always been interested in the arts and music and painting and photography growing up, and film became the most obvious medium to combine all my different interests. And so it's just something that's been bugging me for a long time, and I was fortunate enough to pursue it as a career.
I think my dream job when I was young was an architect. That didn't happen, but I think some of those traits that are creative and technical, about ideas, film's a container, and you can do anything with it. So that flexibility and criticality that you can approach film with is really my interest. And my background is in cinema studies, film theory, and so on. So,
Thank you.
Like a lot of people in this room, my parents were immigrants and they were working so hard that they didn't have time to parent me properly. And so I stared at this TV thing all day long. And this became my parent. I was like, I need to control this and my life. And yeah, I mean, I was always immersed in the TV Brady Bunch and the Different Strokes. That's a totally different generation of television. But yeah, so I just needed to get into that thing and control the strings from behind it.
thank you.
In all honesty, I don't regard myself as a filmmaker. I just happen to have made a film. Honestly, Geronimo is my passion project gone out of control. I never made a conscious decision to transition into a filmmaker. I think I'm still a lawyer. Who's gone on a sabbatical project for 2 years. But when you're young, you want to become many things. One of the things that I did want to become when I was in middle school was I wanted to become a film critic. And that naturally transitioned me into studying film at UC San Diego, which is more theory-based and less production. And like all good, ambitious storyteller, I went to law school afterwards.
So I have a question specifically on your process for getting financing, and for the more experienced filmmakers, I would really like to hear what advice you have for someone who's not experienced, not established, lacking that credibility, how you would, I guess, convince somebody to drop like, 50 grand on something that you're like, hey, wouldn't this be cool? And Joseph, we have similar backgrounds. I'm a lawyer as well. I hate my life. And, I'm really curious. Sorry, I put some words in your mouth there. What I'm really curious for you specifically is your decision to finance through a Kickstarter campaign, and if you could do a post-mortem like on your decision-making process, like why not finance it out of pocket, why not, what other options that you were considering, and why you ultimately decided to do Kickstarter, and what made your Kickstarter campaign like successful?
This is a huge question. Like it's like a 3-hour
I can start it off because I'm the newbie here. Well, so I raised, the total budget of the film was about 160, 70K, right? And out of that, about $100,000 were raised via personal donation, including Kickstarter. Because I did two rounds of Kickstarter campaigns, one for production, another for post-production. So each time it was $20,000 first time, $45,000 second time, and the rest came from executive producer, their friends and families and relatives. And about 25K came from KOFIC, which is a Korean Film Council. I'm a green card holder in Korea, and I applied. I was the first green card holder to ever actually get that grant from the Korean government. And the rest came from academic grants, like a couple thousand from Columbia, UC Riverside, and USC. The reason I did Kickstarter was, and mind you, if I had to accumulate all the time that I spent on grant writing alone, I probably spent good 3 months with my co-producer. We applied to probably over 40, 50 grants all across the US. Around the world, we got 0. We only got 1 from Korean government, which is really ironic. And I think that speaks a lot to my lack of credentials and credibility, or films having been made. Kickstarter only because it was most user-friendly, and it was it can have the reach. And I have to also disclose that the vast majority, maybe not the majority, but close to half of my donors were lawyers. A lot of lawyers came in as executive producers, big donors, and I think part of it was that they wanted to live vicariously through me. And so they were very generous, with always encouraging words. I can't do it, but you should do it. Here's my money, take it. So I think you can definitely tap into your
life as a filmmaker. Very small part of it is actually creative. And as you say, so much energy goes into fundraising. We're supposed to do schmoozing, connect, meetings, and so on. If you have a great producer, they do a lot of that with you, for you. It's very difficult to make a living as a filmmaker, as an independent filmmaker. I had done that for many years, 1990 to 2000, 2001. I was very active in that realm. I could support myself, not a family, say, like just you can live day to day. But I had a long break in Korea, domestic life. I'm not sure if it was burnout, if it was creative or professional or whatever, but I got to a point where I wanted something else out of life. I was very immersed in filmmaking. That really, I couldn't even see it that I was this way. It was just, that was always my life. What I was in a way educated to do, what I wanted to do. But then at some point, I did not want to enact dramas and have a camera film it. I thought, what about my own life? So there's a point where you want a kind of more rounded existence. And I have to say, if you want to make it as a filmmaker, that's a 24/7 endeavor. Because I dropped out for a dozen years in Korea, living an Ajima life, and I come back, and a few of my peers, all male, I have to say, almost all male, have gone on. They are maybe 4 or 5 features in, and so there's that gender aspect. A lot of my female filmmaking peers did not go on to that way. A lot of people go to follow different streams of life. So you're going to be, you have to want it as much as, it's as you say, you can't do anything else. Like I know with Sandra too, it was like and we say this to my daughter too, who wants to be an actress, is studying to be an actress, and she's like, I would just, sorry, the translation's not so great in Korean, but it's like you have to be willing to live at the bottom of society to want to go for what you want, because you're not going to get it if you have other goals, right? It's got to come from some purity of expression, of something, of a story that you want to tell, and that's the only thing that's going to feed you as you work for years and years on one project.
All right, and James, I do apologize, we won't have much time, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, filmmaking has been hard, but I've never lost my passion for it. There's nothing I ever want to do or can imagine doing. Of everything I've ever done in my life, filmmaking is a thing that grows me, teaches me, makes me a more complete human being than anything else I've ever done. And so, for me personally, it is, my dream. I'm living the dream. So.
Thank you.
제23회 릴아시안 국제영화제가 아주 성공적으로 진행되고 있습니다. 올해는 특별히 많은 한국계 감독님들이 저희와 함께 해주셨는데요. 앞으로 더 많은 한국계 영화 작품들을 만나볼 수 있기를 기대해봅니다. 지금까지 토론토 다운타운에서 아리랑 코리아 TV 김예원이었습니다.